So have you ever had the experience where you felt like you had been deceived by somebody? Some of you young men and young women, maybe you're still too young, but just a matter of time before you run into somebody that you might feel like just not comfortable with. You meet them for the first time and like, there's just something about that person I just don't trust. I think, the first chance I get, if it's for their advantage, they'll throw me under the bus. And if it's for their benefit, there's a lot of people out there that they say one thing and then do another. Just kind of how things are. Unfortunate, but it's the truth. I learned in the banking business quite quickly that a lot of people say a lot of things just to get a loan. They say, hey, look at all these great things I've done. Look at all the great activities and property they have and all the money I have coming due. And a lot of times they just say whatever they think you want to hear so that you give them a loan. So I've been doing lending for a long time, so I've heard a lot of things. Matter of fact, there was one guy, what the heck, tell you another little story. There was one guy young guy, probably in his 20s, that I made a loan to for a car, and he got behind 2 or 3 payments, started calling, sending letters, never replied. Finally had to repossess the car, so we took it back, and he, of course, was very angry, called, cussing up a storm when he was talking to me. How dare you do that? And I've made every single payment. I said, I haven't had hardly any payments. I paid my mom every single month. Said, well, your mom never paid us. And maybe when you started getting notices and things, you should have called us and say, hey, what's going on? Anyway, so we repossessed the car. I don't remember all the details, but I think someone stepped in and helped. Got his car back or whatever. But like a month later, he calls me. He's like, hey, my dog had some serious accident or something's going on. I need some help. Can you help me with a loan? I owe the vet like $500 or something. And I thought, well, maybe he was telling the truth. I'll give him a shot to redeem himself. I took the bait. I believed him. Guess what happened? Never heard from him again, of course. It's very sad. Yeah, so I'd been deceived. He was totally telling me all kinds of crap just so he could get that money. So, there are people out there that that's what they do, Unfortunately, there's other principalities, powers, and dominions that are trying to do the same thing, forces in our life. How does this happen? How we become deceived in life? First, it starts with, God sends us an idea, sometimes, a lot of times it's for improvement in our life, what we can do to improve ourselves. And we know that all good things come from God. He's the source of all good things, and usually there's opposition to that. As we're trying to make advances in our life, trying to make improvements, there's going to be an opposing force to try to get us not to do that, unfortunately. So he sends a message, and then what happens next? And you can count on it happening. You can expect it to happen. There's a voice that comes and says, don't do that. Here's some better ideas, kind of thing. So, 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 8 talks about this. And it says, be on the alert. Your adversary, the devil, prowls about like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour. That's his desire, is to take us off course, to be miserable like him. Let me share kind of a couple examples of how you could see this play out in your life. And for a minute, I'll talk to young men and young women, but applies to everybody. But let's say, for instance, you're out of shape, you're overweight, and you have a thought someday in the morning to say, hey, you should wake up earlier in the mornings, go to the gym, watch what you're eating, let's get in shape. So let's say you make a plan. I'm going to get up every day at 5 a.m. and go to the gym, and at least 5 days a week. And I'm going to buy a membership. I'll do that during the day, and then maybe I'll even hire a trainer because I don't know what I'm doing. So Monday comes around, it's 5 a.m. What usually happens? That alarm goes off, and it's like that voice starts up. Man, it's just so early. It's cold outside. I don't want to leave the house. This is too much work. This is too hard. I don't want to do it. I've worked out before and nothing really happens. I get sore and that's about it. Sleep's more important than this workout. It doesn't really matter. If I don't get my sleep, then I'm going to be just worthless at work. I'm not going to be able to do it. Just like this barrage of thoughts and distractions. I don't need to do this. Gym membership's too expensive. When I show up to the gym, there's going to be people that are, look at me. I'm out of shape. They're going to be judging me. I don't want to be judged. And so what happens? Sometimes you're persuaded not to do what you know is best. What do you want? How badly do you want it? What are you worth? What are you willing to pay to get it? That's the question. Sometimes those answers are very hard to... At the outset, it might seem like, yeah, I can do that. And then when you get to it, like, oh man. Yeah, but when you make the decision, when that alarm goes off, you've already made the decision. Don't make it again, just get up and go. So, as you make plans, what happens next? You'll be challenged. There's no question about it. That's the next step. That's what always has happened, and that's what will happen. Your conscience is the voice of God in your life. As you listen to it, you will be persuaded not to do what is suggested. And sometimes the worst part about it is sometimes you won't even notice that you're being persuaded to do something that's less than the best. So let me give you a couple examples. Second example, I guess. This is talking more to young men than anybody else. Let's say you're dating a young lady and you enjoy spending time with her. This might be the right person to spend the rest of your life with. Like you want to take things to the next level, maybe get involved more physically, have an intimate relationship. Probably the first thing that you're thinking is, God might place the thought in your head, it's time to take the next step. Maybe we should get married. And that's probably the best thing to do in your life, to make that commitment. As soon as you make that commitment and start going down that road, that's what your conscience is telling you to do is the best thing. But as soon as you make that decision, you're going to have some opposing forces trying to persuade you to do the opposite of that. And how is that going to sound? What are some of the arguments that Satan might plant in your head? These are just examples. Number one, I've heard this said a lot. Marriage is just so outdated. It's just some piece of paper. What's the big deal? I don't need to get married. I don't need that to show a commitment. I'll stop right there on that one. That's a lie. It is a big deal. You're making a commitment to this person. It's a legal arrangement with the state as God and your friends and family as witnesses that you're willing to make that commitment. It's a great thing. It's a commitment long term. That way someone, if they have a bad day and they roll out of bed on the wrong side and they say, man, did I marry you? Or why am I committed to you? You stink. I think I'm done. Without that commitment, if times get bad, most time I'm moving on. Which would be especially bad if you had children in that relationship. So first argument he could present. Second argument, you don't really know somebody until you move in with them. Why get married? You've got to test drive the car before you buy it. That kind of argument, nonsense. Maybe number three, the whole reception thing, sending out announcements, it's very expensive to get married, rent a reception hall and all that kind of stuff. And then, you don't like standing in lines, remember? It's awkward. You're going to stand in this reception line. It's going to be awkward. You're meeting new people. Remember, you don't like doing that. It's just awkward and all this stuff. All of those things are lies. They're all lies. So what's happening? Someone is trying to get you to believe these lies. If you start believing these lies, it's like you're trying to push down or push aside your conscience. You know what is right. You're trying to make yourself feel better for doing the wrong thing. And when you start listening or acting on these lies, you distance yourself from God, and your conscience becomes weaker. And Satan's winning the game. He's leading you on a road to destruction, to decline, decay. Instead of getting better, you're getting worse. How does he do it? He's very calculated. He's very careful in how he does it. Matter of fact, in 2 Nephi, chapter 28, verse 21, he talks about how this is done. And he says, and others will he pacify and lull them away into carnal security, that they will say, all is well in Zion. Zion prospereth, all is well. And thus the devil cheateth their souls and leadeth them carefully down to hell. So, common strategy. He's not very creative. It's the same arguments over and over. Hey, your life's good. Nothing to see here, nothing to do, nothing to improve. Just continue listening to my voices. The easiest, best thing to do is lie. And he is careful. He carefully leads you down to lower levels, to lesser than you have. So here's a key that you should look for. It happens all the time. A lot of times when you hear that thought or have a thought, an idea that's a good thought, it'll be one statement, like a one sentence deal. You should do this. And then immediately, almost after that, you'll have a barrage. Just 3 or 4 or 5 counter arguments saying why it's not such a good thing. That you should do what's easy. Easy is what's best. That's a lie. What's best is not easy. A lot of times, the hardest things you do in your life will be the best things you do. As I was doing some research for this, I was reading on the internet a lady's experience about being deceived. And I'll put the source of this lady's experience in the description field in the video. But this is her quote. There was an event in my life when I truly heard the voice of God. It was not audible, but in my heart and mind, he clearly spoke. And I had just dropped off my friend at her home. She was in treatment for leukemia and could not drive herself. Seeing her struggle, I cried out to the Lord, and in his mercy, he clearly spoke to me. He said, she is dying and doing everything in her life She is dying and doing everything to live. You are living, doing everything to die. While my unsaved friend was fighting for her life, I was caught in the web of deception, in a battle with anorexia, headed for the grave, but I did not even know it. I was so busy listening to Satan and his lies, whispering in my ear. I no longer knew the truth. But on this day, God got my attention, and I knew I had not been hearing from him. Everything I thought I knew was a lie. Then she continues and she says, now many people will say I should not spiritualize my struggle with anorexia with a mental illness. It has nothing to do with God or Satan. But I would disagree. I have been studying the book of 1 Samuel lately, she says. And one thing really stood out to me in 1 Samuel 16:14 says, but the Spirit of the Lord departed from Saul, and a distressing spirit of the Lord troubled him. So she's saying that connection of her eating disorder was because she was having issues listening to her conscience and instead listening to a troubling spirit guide her into lower and a decaying position where her misery and her distress continued day by day as she was listening to the lies that Satan told her about her body. When you hear someone whisper in your ear, stop for a moment and think, does this encourage me and give me hope in my life? Or does it seek to remove me from the course I know is right? When you find the right path, Satan will come telling lies. The more you believe the lies, the more off course you become, and the spirit stops talking to you, and you're left to your own devices like Saul. Are you trying to silence your conscience by listening to the lies of Satan? Don't be deceived. There is only one path back to God, and that is by following your conscience. Follow the voice of improvement. Don't let any other voice remove you from that path.